Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I will be the moderator for tonight's candidate debate. Joining me is Ms. Paula Thomas from the Clean Elections Commission of Arizona. The Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign reform measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these debates. As we move into the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card that you received as you walked in and hold it up. One of our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. The debate is scheduled for 1 hour, so we may not get to all of the questions, but we'll do our best. There is an independent timer right up front who will see that all the candidates have equal time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements for 3 minutes, a quick lightning round, 2 minutes to answer audience questions, closing statements for 3 minutes. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. That means no applause, outbursts, or cheers, except when we introduce the candidates. This is especially important as closed captioning services will be made available after this debate for those who are hearing impaired. As such, I will refer to each candidate by their full name prior to each question and ask that the candidates speak clearly into the microphone. Our candidates this evening are Ms. Terri Woodmansee, Democrat running for state senator and a clean elections participant, and Mr. Stephen Hansen, Democrat running for state representative and a clean elections participant. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, and then we'll progress from that point. The closing order will be determined in reverse alphabetical order. So Ms. Terri Woodmansee, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate the fact that you're out here wanting to get educated about your candidates. I especially want to thank the Clean Elections Committee, and I really appreciate everything they're doing to ensure that we have great candidates as well as great elections and turnouts. I am a mother of 4. I have lived in the Valley most of my adult life. I am a clean election candidate because I do not believe in corporate funding. I believe that that marks it for lobbyist control. Most of my life in Arizona, I have been a public servant, and part of the reason I'm running is because I don't believe our current senator has been that. Our senator has been absent. He's not been available to the people, and frequently you'll hear him say, "Do you know who I am?" I don't believe in that philosophy. I believe in being there for the people. The oath you take as a senator is to be there for the people and to fight for them and work for them. I have fought against corruption in the city of Goodyear, and I have worked really hard to work for victims. And now I want to work for you as your senator, and I want to ensure that your voice is being heard. I believe in having an open door, a phone call, anything you might need. I don't believe in closing access to me. My phone number, my home phone number, my cell phone number, my home address is on most of my material. I will be easy to access. I also believe in having an open door policy to my constituents. No matter what party they belong to, I want to hear from them. I want to work with everybody because I'm there for the people, not for the party. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Well, what a dedicated group of patriotic citizens that are coming out to hear an hour of enlightened debate. Well, it's not exactly debate. as our opponents are conspicuously absent. But anyway, we will have an hour of a conversation with Terri and I. My name is Steve Hansen. I'm running for Arizona State House of Representatives in Legislative District 13. This is my first run for public office. I'm from and for the American West. I was born in Utah, raised in Colorado, and been in Arizona for about the last 25 years. I'm happily married to the love of my life, Cheryl, and I'm the primary caregiver of my 89-year-old mother who lives right next door. I'm a semi-retired land surveyor that still holds active licenses in Arizona, California, and Colorado. At various times in my life, I've been involved in many other traditional Western industries such as mining, agriculture, construction, and the oil patch. Philosophically and politically, I'm a pragmatist that apply common sense to decision making, and I'm sure that my opponents, who again are not here tonight, are well-meaning young men, but I don't think they really have the life experience to have a good perspective when it comes to public policy. There's a lot of important issues in Arizona, but my priorities would be water, education, economic development, jobs, infrastructure, private prison reform, and tax reform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In an attempt to lighten the mood for this evening's debate, we're going to do a quick lightning round of this or that. This will allow us to get to know more about the candidates. So if you would please just answer with one word, and we'll start with Mr. Steve Hansen. Droid, iPhone, or Windows?
Windows.
Okay. Ms. Terri Woodmansee, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
MSNBC.
Okay. And now we'll move into the actual debate questions. Remember that if you have questions for our candidates, feel free to write them on one of the cards and hold up the cards so a volunteer can bring them to me. First question for this evening is, please identify what you consider to be the most pressing issue in your district and how you will address it if elected. And we'll start with Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Thank you. The most pressing issue in my district is multifaceted, partially because LD13, as many of you know who live here, runs over 175 miles. It includes Maricopa County West, Yuma North in the county, and then also Yuma City Central and South. But it goes beyond that. Each part of my district is very unique. There's different needs in each of the districts. Economy is one of the biggest one across the board. We have issues happening as far out as Tonopah, where they aren't being heard or listened to. And we have issues down in Yuma, where they have the highest unemployment rate in the nation at 26.9%. Overall, the economy affects everybody, and many of the people in our district are very involved in their community, and their voice needs to be heard by their senator, by their legislators, and by people that choose to build businesses out there or be part of that community. Your community is number one to me, and it's imperative that we focus on the economy. That includes jobs and education, but also making sure you're happy with your home and your community, and everybody has an understanding of what that community is about and what we need to do to make sure it's on a forward path.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
The immediate need in the district is going to be education, but I think we'll get into that later. The long-term need in both Yuma area and Maricopa is going to be water. The reason we have plentiful and affordable water is because we planned well in advance, starting 50 and 100 years ago. Infrastructure is getting old on water, and we're not only going to have to plan to conserve it, we're going to have to plan for additional infrastructure. There's a dichotomy of the uses of water. Yuma is heavily reliant upon agriculture, and Maricopa County is, of course, highly reliant upon the water for development and recreation. So long-term, the issue in this district and much of Arizona is going to be water.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how do you propose to improve the job climate in our state? And we'll start with Mr. Steve Hansen.
Well, I think we can review regulations to ensure that businesses are easy to be created and so on. I think long-term, and this isn't going to be a quick fix, but businesses that come to Arizona are going to come here because we have a good education system that their children are going to be able to get into good schools and so on. And until we improve the education system in this state, we're going to have a hard time attracting quality businesses to it.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Our job climate is multiple layers. Yes, we need to have corporations, and in order to bring in big corporations, we need to have jobs that we have skilled staff for. That affects education. But we can't depend on just large corporations. A majority of our climate here is small business, and we need to have small business sustainability. We need to ensure that big companies are not going to come in and move aside the little mom and pop shops, because that's what a basis of a lot of our area in District 3 is about, is the smaller businesses. People that have built their business from scratch and have had it for years. We have farmers who have given their farms over their entire lifetime in their family. And it's imperative that we ensure the safety and sustainability of them. And it's important for jobs that we give them the opportunity. And part of that is through the education. And we are failing in education because it's not been funded. The funding was cut dramatically. We cannot have employees if they're not educated and have the skills to do the job, just as in small business, they need education and have the opportunity for education to create businesses and encourage our citizens to build their own businesses and bring that to the market as well.
Thank you. How important is integrity of a candidate? We'll start with Ms. Terri Woodmansee, please.
I believe the integrity of a candidate is utmost. The candidate has to stand behind what they say they'll do. I stood strong. I had a company, a government agency, fire me for standing strong, for standing up against what was wrong. That's integrity. I believe you have to stand strong. As you many know, my opponent has come up against the law recently for doing an event at a school and barging in. That was unacceptable. It's not something we want our children to grow up to think is okay. That doesn't show true integrity. Integrity means you're going to stand for what you say you will stand for. You will fight for what you say you will fight for, no matter what. I was willing to risk my job, which I lost, standing strong. And I will do that for every person in this room and everybody in my district and this state, because it's time we stand for the people and not for dark money, corporations, and lobbyists. We stand for you.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
When you've lost integrity, you've certainly lost the people, and I think that shows in polls that show politicians have roughly a 7% approval rating. And unfortunately, all politicians are tainted with that broad brush, but I think, as Terri said, integrity is of utmost importance.
Thank you. What can be done to improve the quality of K through 12 education? Mr. Steve Hansen.
First of all, I guess the legislature could give up their chaotic lawsuit against the proposition funding that the courts are not going to ever overturn, and come up with the $312 million immediately out of the rainy day fund. I would say that long term they're going to have to figure out a way to fund that. Now, they aren't going to come up with a new tax increase, but I will tell you what, if a referendum came to the voters that said we're going to have a 0.5% sales tax increase and it's going to all go to education, I will tell you that that would overwhelmingly pass the vote. If it went to the general fund, not so much. But if a 0.5-cent sales tax was on the referendum that went directly to education, it would get the vote. So we need money in order to actually get schools up to where they need to be. I'm tired of having Arizona in a race with Mississippi and Louisiana for paying the least, for having the worst record of schools and paying the teachers the least amount. 25% of teachers are leaving this state each year. This is unsustainable.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I have to agree with Steve on funding being one of the major parts of improving our K through 12 quality. But it goes beyond just funding. Legislature cut funding without thinking of the repercussions. We have teachers go to school for a very long time and learn a lot of techniques to work with our children. Our children need to be engaged in school, and in order for teachers to engage the minds of children, they need the resources and the tools. This funding that was cut stopped that. They didn't allow the teachers. They set priorities. It's similar to the fact that they've made a box and said, this is all you're going to teach and focus on because we want to pass these tests to get a certain score. It's not just about that. It is about giving them the ability to engage students. We trust them enough to be trained. Now we need to allow them to use that training to educate our children. And in order to include that quality, we need to look at making cuts elsewhere and not in our education system and bringing that money back as ordered by the court and getting it in the system, paying our teachers well, but also giving them the funds to do the resources, whether it's some field trips or some type of experiments, but things to engage our children's mind, because that's going to lead to equality.
Thank you. Earlier this year, Governor Brewer abolished Child Protective Services and replaced it with a new agency called Child Safety and Family Services. What would you do to protect children in Arizona? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Thank you. I've had a lot of experience being a victim advocate dealing with Child Protective Services, and it was flawed. It had a lot of problems. A lot of cases were left out. They were left behind. Children were ignored, and the needs were ignored. Many times, because of the lack of qualified people doing the jobs and having enough of them to get around to all the cases, it was a quick, there's shelter, there's food, there's water, there's clothing, they're good. That's not what we needed. We needed CPS to be interceded in, and what she did was a good start, but it was just a start. We need to continue to look at Child Protective Services. We need to make sure what the policies are, but also what the resources and the tools we have to work in those cases. It's great if we can put the children back in the home, but we need to ensure safety for these children. They are our most precious commodity because they depend on us to fight for them. And it's not just a parent's responsibility. As many people say, it takes a village to raise a child. We all need to step in and make sure that it gets reported. But beyond that, we need to ensure that what we have created now in this Child and Safety Division is that they're held accountable and that cases are monitored and that they are being worked every day. They're not just checked on.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Any new agency is going to take a little bit of time to get up and running smoothly, so we do need to give them a little bit of time to do what they need to do. After that, they do need to be monitored, held accountable, and we really need to start with some preventative measures rather than having kids out of their homes immediately. So anyway, I think it's going to take some time and resources. It's going to have to be monitored to make sure that they're doing the job they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. Remember, if you have questions, raise the card up so someone can pick it up from you. Next question is, what role does the state have when it comes to immigration and protection of the border? And we'll start with Mr. Steve Hansen.
Immigration is generally a federal issue. You can work in coordination to a certain amount with ICE. Arizona has obviously had some problems with overly zealous enforcement of it. They've recently been called on DACA that what they're doing is illegal. So generally, at least in my opinion, immigration is something that needs to be handled at the federal level, and Congress actually needs to do something right now. There's little that the state can do long-term on it. Congress needs to step in and change the law.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I believe it is a federal issue. However, it's our state. And we need to secure our borders, especially given post 9/11 and what has occurred and what could occur. The wars are no longer just on other territory. They can be on our own. And we have to secure our borders, but we need to do so with a comprehensive immigration reform. We need to work with our federal agencies, with our federal government, and with our elected officials that go federally, and we need to solve this issue and quit putting it on the back burner. We need to work together to make something happen. We have way too much going on here, and especially in our district, our borders affect our people in our districts. Yuma in particular, I've met with many of them, and they're concerned. They're afraid that there's going to have problems. And then we also have farmers who need the migrant workers. They need to have a legal workforce, and we need to do something to make that available for them as well.
Thank you. What is your position on Common Core in education? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, that's always a big topic with everybody. Common Core is just another mechanism. I look at it as a box. It's got instructions, it's got training, it's got accountability, it has testing. A couple years ago, we depended on Ames for that, and that was the thing. Common Core is important because it sets a standard, and it's something that can go across the nation. So if you move, your children move, they can be held at the same level. There's no differences. But it's not all there is to education. Common Core is a piece of it, and it has to be looked as only a piece of it. We need to continue to look at funding. We need to look at expanding that so our children have the ability to be engaged, and our teachers and our schools can use this as a piece of education, but it cannot be the only thing, and we can't base everything on it.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
We're in a global economy, and our children are competing against children from all around the world. So we need some sort of standards in order to be able to have a way to nationally evaluate apples to apples. What works in Louisiana is going to work in New York, is going to work in Ohio, et cetera. So I don't care if it's Common Core, just as long as it's another set of standards. I would say it'd be penny wise and pound foolish right now for Arizona to simply give up Common Core without having something better to replace it with.
Thank you. What is your position on infrastructure spending, particularly on highway improvements? Mr. Steve Hansen.
I think infrastructure should be looked at more of an investment as an expenditure. I see that more people are actually taking public transport than they originally envisioned. There's a plan to take high-speed rail down to Tucson, and frankly, there'd be a long-term plan to maybe have high rail to Vegas and Southern California. So I think money invested in infrastructure actually comes back tenfold eventually.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Thank you. Infrastructure spending on highway, as many of us know with I-10 here locally, it was a big deal to expand that freeway to give us a better freeway to get between here and California. It also was a proven fact that it would help lower in some of the accidents we were having on the freeway because it was so small with large trucks, et cetera. But it's more than that. In infrastructure spending, we need to look at the traveling and who's traveling, and can we get federal dollars to help us with some of that infrastructure? What resources can we use that will not affect the rest of our economy, that we can make good roads and positive improvements, but at the same time, we need to make sure that it's not just us driving those freeways. We need to ensure that the federal government is a portion of that as well.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on CAPOs, I guess, Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations, CAFO, and the impact they have on small towns and communities? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, I'm a little familiar with that because I've been out to Tonopah a lot, and I understand their frustration. It is alarming to me when I looked at CAPOs. And basically, for those of you that don't understand, it's when they're doing, like, with Hickman Farms, it's small cages and a lot of chickens in one cage. There's a lot of detrimental things going on with that. In California recently, there was a lot of work done because it did cause problems. It caused pollution issues. It caused irrigation issues. There are problems with CAPOs, and I think we have to relook at that and how we designate our businesses, especially if it's an agricultural business. Is that truly what a chicken farm is? And do we need to look at expanding some of our regulations and how we do things? Because ultimately, it doesn't just affect that community, it affects us all down the road. And we need to really be serious about how we handle this kind of farming.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
I agree with a lot of what Terri said. I'm not sure that that the zoning, that it should be zoned completely agricultural, because really it seems to be more, as much industrial as anything else. So we do need to look at how to actually zone those particular businesses. On the other hand, most of us do eat eggs, and so we do need to produce eggs and agriculture someplace. But I think maybe we should look at how to zone it.
Thank you. What is your position on the death penalty? Mr. Steve Hansen.
I'm not sure that I'm opposed to it, except the way that it's been implemented. I think it should be reserved for the worst crimes. However, I'm not sure that it's cost effective either. If it's more cost effective to simply leave somebody in prison for the rest of their life, rather than going through the appeals and constant appeals, then I'm not sure we just shouldn't choose the most cost-effective way to make certain they're not going to hurt anybody again. Having said that, if of course, if it was somebody near and dear to me, I would probably be in favor of the death penalty. But anyway, I think the way that Arizona is implementing it, especially with the drugs that they're having a hard time getting control of, that it does seem to be cruel and unusual punishment to take an hour or two to kill somebody.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
The death penalty can be a difficult question for anybody. It affects your moral, your ethical, and all your emotional feelings, especially when you're the one who's lost someone. With my experience working with victims and their families, it can be a very difficult decision. I can't tell you honestly how I feel one way or the other, because I'm not the person who's going to be then asking for the death penalty. When I've worked with victims in the past, and they've had someone lost because of a heinous crime, they've wanted the death penalty. I've also had families that have not. And they're the ones that ultimately are living with this situation and this crime, and it's really difficult to say. I think it's an opportunity to have it on the books and an ability to be there. But again, when your prosecutors are dealing with the victims' families, they're the ones telling you whether they want the death penalty or not, because ultimately they've already lost somebody, and sometimes they don't want the criminal to get off by having the death penalty because they feel it's an easy way out. So it's a really complex issue, and I think that it's good to have the death penalty on the books, but I do think, especially given the recent events that occurred with it, we need to reevaluate that.
Thank you. What was your opinion of Governor Brewer's decision last year to expand Medicaid in Arizona? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Thank you. I think that Jan Brewer did the correct thing by expanding Medicaid. It gives us 3 years of insurance. A lot of people are against it because it was difficult to understand at the time. In working in the areas that I worked with, I learned a few things. I learned about the fact that a few years ago, our access program was cut to adults. Anyone who was a single adult, even if they had a mental health issue. That was problematic because now we had adult patients that have mental health issues and they couldn't get care. They couldn't get services. And you don't want someone out there trying to cope with a severe schizophrenia or anything else. That puts us in danger. The Medicaid expansion allows us to put these people back on a health plan, and it allows us to give them time to get set up in a system and get some care that they need and maybe get on a good track. But it's also important for those children that weren't covered because they weren't getting the resources they need. So overall, I really do believe the Medicaid expansion was a positive thing right now. It may not feel like it because you're worried about what legislatures are saying could happen in 3 years, but I think we need to take it one step at a time, and everybody should be able to have some type of medical care. Preventative is better than after.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
I think Jan Brewer did the math and made the right decision. I think it's much cheaper to treat people that have access to health care than it is to treat them in emergency rooms.
Thank you. What is your position on same-sex marriage? Mr. Steve Hansen.
With the latest Supreme Court decision, 30 states, gay marriage will be legal in about 30 states. With the Full Faith and Credit Act of the United States Constitution, I think it will eventually go to all 50 states.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Hansen? Woodmansee, excuse me, Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, we started out a long time ago with separation of church and state, and we have the creation of freedom of religion as one of our amendments. So my feeling is this: I'm not against a gay marriage. I think everybody individually has different feelings on it, and everyone has the right to have those feelings, but I'm not sure government belongs in that issue.
Thank you. How do you feel about companies bypassing normal policies to build businesses in flood zones? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, we have a lot of flood zones in Arizona, though we don't usually see that much water. Unfortunately, recently we did. I think it's really a concern. We do have a flood control management division in our state, and we need to keep them active. I don't think policies should be created to avoid those flood zones and then allow the consumer to be stuck in a situation where maybe their home is flooded. We all know how that works with insurance if you don't have a special flood policy. And they don't usually give you flood policy unless you're in a flood zone, and then you pay dearly for it. So there's a lot of concerns with that we're overlooking policies, and they're there for a good reason to protect the consumer, and I think we need to stay with that.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
As a land surveyor, I used to do elevation certificates now and then, and that would essentially tell the insurance company how many cubic feet per second of water would be coming down any one area, and I was amazed at the amount of flood zones actually within Arizona. I feel that if a business gets insured for it, that it's one thing. Now, the federal government actually subsidizes the flood insurance, but I think we should really restrict people from building in flood zones unless they can build something that's more or less flood-proof, the same as people building in national forests that are prone to fires.
Thank you. Why are you running as a clean election candidate? Mr. Steve Hansen.
Because I really didn't want to accept special interest money, and I felt it was the most honest way for me to run.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
My answer will be quite similar. I don't believe that corporation or lobbyists should control our legislature. And unfortunately, when you take that money, they come knocking on your door as a legislator, and they are asking for something, and they've usually made you a deal in the interim to get there. And I truly believe clean elections is a really positive way to ensure to the community and to the people of this state that our candidates don't have that kind of situation set up. They aren't making promises they shouldn't be giving. And I think that it would be something we need to look through in the future to make it a mandatory.
Thank you. Do you support the restoration of HURF funding, HURF funding? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I don't know a lot about the HURF funding right now, and I need to do more research on that. But at this point in time, from what little I have learned, I'm not sure how I feel if I would support that or not.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Yes, I would support restoring it. I think we continue to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Okay, thank you. What will you do to make sure that all people have the right to vote? The people that have the right to vote are able to vote, is the gist of the question. What would you do to make sure that all people that have the right to vote are able to vote? Mr. Steve Hansen.
Well, I guess the first step is to make certain that it's fairly easy to get registered. And I would personally rather see an all mail-in ballot type system in Arizona, the same as Oregon and Washington State. I think they're getting 70% turnout on it, and actually make it so if somebody doesn't have a mailing address that they can go down to a courthouse or something. I think it's cheaper, and I think you get a higher turnout. So I don't know how you completely ensure that everybody that's eligible to vote is going to be eligible to vote when there's so many people that are eligible to vote that choose not to vote.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, that's a good question for me. I just met with the Assistant Secretary of State this week because I was very concerned about your right to vote. Recently, a couple of the cities within this district did an all mail-in, and then when people went to the polls that were shown and listed as being open polls, they were closed, and they were then redirected to their city halls. And it's fine if you know that ahead of time and you know where you can go vote, but we need to ensure that our citizens understand where the voting polls are, where they can vote, and how they're voting. If it's a mail-in, then we need to ensure that that information is gotten out. We need to make sure that everyone has the right to vote and also has the ability to get where they need to go vote. Mail-ins are great, especially if you're homebound, but there are some people that prefer to actually go to the poll because they don't trust the mail, or they feel that their ballot might not get there. And there are mechanisms to protect it, but ultimately, we need to ensure that the voters know exactly how the polls are being played, where they're being set up, and that their votes are protected. And I think it's really important that we ensure that through many mechanisms.
Thank you. How do you feel about an increase in the minimum wage, Ms. Terri Woodmansee?
I do believe the minimum wage needs to increase. With that said, I also know small businesses may struggle with that increase. I think we need to really work on how that increase will come about and how high it will go. I can honestly tell you I'm not sure that $15 an hour is going to be sustainable for small businesses. It would probably close a lot of people who've been in business for a very long time. I do think, though, that our workers need to have enough of an income to sustain themselves as well, and we need to look at that avenue and what sources are out there to help small businesses, especially if we do raise the minimum wage, and how high we raise it.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
I'd like to see an increase in the minimum wage, and I'd like to see it indexed for inflation at some point. I'm not sure that $10 an hour is really enough to live on, but it does seem unconscionable to me that people that work 40 hours a week still are eligible for food stamps and other public assistance. So really, we tend to, as a society, subsidize businesses that hire low-wage individuals through food stamps and earned income credit and things like that. But I would be in favor of an increase in the minimum wage and indexed for inflation.
Thank you. After voters passed Proposition 301, there was no appreciable change to our students' test scores. Why do you think restoring these funds will increase, and where will the money come from? Mr. Steve Hansen.
I think that there is a correlation that can be shown in general that of schools that have money tend to have better outcomes. Now that doesn't mean that New York, that spends $18,000 on a student, is going to have a lot better outcomes than other places, but certainly you need to have a stable enough system that teachers are going to stay there for the long term. So I don't agree with the premise. I think if standards are in place, that teachers are held accountable, students are held accountable, that actually you will have those outcomes.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I don't think we can base everything strictly on the test scores. I think we need to look at our dropout rate. We also need to look at what's being placed in our public schools versus our charter schools. And then there are parents that do homeschooling. I know that if you send a child to some charter schools in Arizona that are accredited through the state of Arizona, they take the tax dollar away from that district. And we need to look at that. And the funding is affecting everybody across the board in our schools. And we need to work to ensure that that money goes back, because the people are crying out for that money to go back. The teachers are crying out for that money. I have met many teachers who go and spend their last penny trying to buy things for their students so that they can give them that experience, so that they can engage their minds, and they can't get the funding from the school. And it's not fair of us to expect teachers to go way out on the other end of the spectrum and then not provide them the resources that they need. And it's really imperative that we don't base everything on test scores, but we base it on the outcome. How many children are going to college? How many children are being successful? And how well are they competing in the market?
Thank you. Do you support cities and towns having elections in off years that don't coincide with state elections? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Well, I think that puts a burden on the town, and it's really up to the taxpayers in that vicinity if they want to do that. I don't believe that we should set it up in such a way that we are now across the board having to pay additional county fees so that cities can go on the off-year elections. I think it's really imperative we look at costs, and is this an effective way to utilize the money for elections across the board? If the cities are going to self-fund their elections, then that might be an avenue to look at. But it's putting a lot of burden on taxpayers, and I think we need to be careful and really evaluate it first.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
I agree with Terry, and I would rather see the city elections held on the same years as the regular election cycle.
Thank you. Should guns be allowed in public buildings? Mr. Steve Hansen.
I guess it depends. The Supreme Court has said it's an individual right, not a collective right, to own a firearm, and so I guess it's up to the jurisdiction in the state to make those laws.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I am concerned if guns are going to be allowed in schools. I know that there's a lot of talk about arming teachers, and other states are doing that. I don't know the success rate in that, and I'm not sure that we want to know the success rate, which means they would probably have to go through another Columbine or something like that first to evaluate it. We need to be sure that guns in public places are in a setting that they're not likely to have high tempers, alcohol abuse, or anything else going on, that gun could be pulled at the wrong moment for the wrong reasons. And I think we have to really individually look at that and also look at that as a state.
Thank you. What do you believe is the legitimate function of government? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Government was created to give us some guidelines, to give us tools, to give us resources, and to help us as a people, as a community. But government should not be so overbearing that it makes every decision for us. We need to ensure that the government has got the guidelines set up and has our resources being used to their best expansion and best possible need. But we have to be careful that we don't allow government to now step across. It's just like when we talk about church and state, how we have separated that. We need to ensure that we allow the government to do its job and we fund it, but we also need to be cautious. How much further do we want to take it?
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Well, it's a loaded question. We live in a constitutional republic, and I guess I will leave it at that. After that, there's state government, local government. We're in a federalist type system. So again, it just kind of depends. But there are all sorts of flavors when it comes to different states.
Thank you. As a legislator, what would be your first priority in working toward a balanced budget? Mr. Steve Hansen.
Trying to get a handle on the funding that's due to education is the primary thing, because that's going to be the biggest bear. And once the rainy day fund will take care of that for a little while, but after that is the biggest concern, and it is not going to be easy. There can be some savings in other places, and I think a broader based tax base with less loopholes would probably bring in more revenue, and of course, really, a good economy makes even a mediocre governor look like a genius. So once the economy gets a little bit better, revenues are going to actually come up, and it's not going to be as much of an issue. And I think the economy does continue to improve right now. We were so heavily developed in, we had so much of our emphasis on realty development that it really hurt Arizona much more than a lot of the states. And real estate is not, I don't think, going to come back as much as it was in the past. But I think that Arizona's economy is turning, and I think that'll make a big difference in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
A balanced budget is important to this state, but we have to look at what funds we're sweeping from where. Many people don't realize, but the governor has the ability to sweep funds from many different areas, from prisons, from prison funds that actually create victim funds, from various different groups that are a part of the budget in different divisions. And I think we need to look at how those sweeps are taking place and when they're taking place. And one idea I actually have is actually because of my opponent. My opponent, as you know, double or triple dipped not too long back, and it was a big deal in the press that he put in for his per diem on his travel to the state, but also took it out of his campaign funds. Well, then maybe we need to look at where the legislators are putting that money and those requests for money in, and maybe cut that back.
Thank you. How has your educational and professional background prepared you for the office you are running for? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
My educational and occupational background has been related to serving the public. I worked very hard to be a public servant. I spent in fact, all of my adult career serving the public in many ways. My latest being here as a victim advocate, fighting for victims' rights, and working with legislature to create the Victims' Bill of Rights here in Arizona. I feel that it's important that we never lose aspect as to who we're fighting for and what we take an oath of. As a victim advocate, I took an oath to fight for a victim no matter what. That meant if it was going against my own agency or anything else that I needed to do to ensure their rights were protected. I believe that's given me the strength and the ability and shown me the course I need to take to make sure that our public has a voice and that we work for them, not for corporations, not for government. We are actually working for the people that vote us in, and we need to be accessible to them. And I've learned that through everything I've done and how I do things, and I'm not going to change that. I will always be there for the people of the state.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
I managed the BLM's land surveying program for the last 10 years, and it wasn't a large budget, sometimes sometimes a couple of million, sometimes a little more. But most of that money kind of came from other agencies in the various Indian tribes. So I had to make coalitions of different agencies, various tribes, and the rest of it. As a field surveyor for the last 20 years, there's not any place in Arizona I have not been, so I understand the state of Arizona pretty good. And frankly, looking at what we have down at the legislature now, it's not rocket science.
Thank you. If elected, what committees would you like to serve on and why? Mr. Steve Hansen.
I'd like to serve on the Resources Committee because I think water is the long-term real problem in Arizona that we're not facing up to right now.
Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I have more than one. I'm very aggressive and I'm very task-oriented. And I would like to serve on the Appropriations Committee in place of my opponent because I feel that he's not the best candidate to handle the budget. I've been a small business owner, so I know how hard that can be, but I also believe he's got too many lobbyist interests at hand. I also want to be on the Water Board because I want to ensure that the water rights for the state and for us is protected, every drop of it. And also agricultural, because I want to ensure that our district, which has a lot of agricultural area, is protected and that the industries going in there are truly farms and that they're being dealt with and zoned properly.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen. I'm sorry.
Was that a deer in the headlights?
Next question is, what is an issue or position where you stand in disagreement with your own party?
Oh, I would probably the one that would stand out would be gun control, and that's really because of as I said earlier, the Supreme Court decision makes owning a firearm an individual right rather than a collective right. We have 300 million firearms in the United States that are unregistered, and those firearms are still usable even after 100 years. So gun control itself probably to stop these Columbine incidents, it'd probably be more rational to start with mental health reform than it would be to try to start with gun control. Although if we could do background checks that would be more efficient, I would not be opposed to that.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
It's hard to say with the party because I don't consider myself strictly party specific. I believe in doing what's right. And I would have to agree with Steve a little bit on gun control because I do believe you have the right to bear arms, but I do believe we have an issue that we have to address. Our children, our grandchildren, our spouses Our loved ones have to be safe when they're out in the community, when they're at school, when they're at a movie theater. And unfortunately, we've seen with the mental health issue that it's not always safe because guns can get in the wrong hands. But I do not believe in banning guns. I believe, especially in Arizona, most of us do own arms. But I believe we need to work on that method and figure out how we can control it without violating HIPAA for mental health patients, but protecting us and our loved ones.
Thank you. Do you believe in eliminating state income tax? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Wow. If that was an easy fix, we'd do it already. I don't know that we could do that. I think that we have so many programs that have to be serviced, and one way that it's done is through our state income tax. But I don't believe that we should leave things on our income tax that has been voted in by voters for a certain project, and then the project's done and they're still collecting. I know a lot of cities have the same kind of thing going on where they'll put a bond or an issue through and it's over and they still continue to collect that tax. So I think we need to be cautious about income tax, but if it was something we could do, then it's not a bad idea.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Nobody likes taxes, but unless they can find a way to actually make up that money from the income tax, I would say no. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Name someone from the opposing party that you like and respect. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Chuck Hagel.
Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
I'm going to go a little further back. And I was born in California, so I knew about this individual, and I had the opportunity to actually meet him when he was in the White House after he'd been shot, and that's Ronald Reagan.
Thank you. Let me just... one second. What are your thoughts on the current pension system for the state of Arizona workers? Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Everybody depends on their pension, and that's a tough issue. We all develop our pension through a corporation or employer. Unless we're a small business, then we are up to us to develop it as our own 401k. I think, though, that we have to be cautious with the state pension. We can't just wipe it out. We have to allow the people that are working for us hard in different agencies to be able to still make a pension because they're serving us as a public servant. That said, I think we need to be cautious how much we're matching, how much we're giving, and what we're doing with it. And we need to ensure that we're not allowing it to bleed us as taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Hansen.
Well, guaranteed annuity retirements are becoming rarer and rarer, and maybe the state could take a page book from the federal government and have maybe a smaller annuity combined with the 401k, combined with Social Security, and that might actually be a more secure retirement and actually be less of a burden on the Arizona taxpayer.
Thank you. We will now begin the candidates' closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Mr. Steve Hansen.
Thank you. Again, thanks for coming out. If you want to be represented by a career politician, then I'm certainly not your candidate. If you believe in common sense government that's by and for the people, then I'm asking your support. I believe Arizona can do much better, and I would do a better job than the current representatives. Longer term, I think after the next census, I would like to see more competitive districts in Arizona. I think that simply winning the primary should not assure you of a general election victory. Thanks, and please vote for Better Arizona this November.
Thank you. Ms. Terri Woodmansee.
Everywhere I go in this district, I talk to the residents and I talk to the citizens, and I haven't found many of them that are pro for my opponent, Don Shooter. Many of them say he doesn't care, and I agree with you. He doesn't care. I do, and that's why I'm here tonight. As you notice, he's not here tonight. In fact, I've been at 6 forums, and he's only made it to 1. I am concerned that you as citizens are being ignored. He has left you out, and he's working for the lobbyists and the big corporations, and that's not what I believe government should be for. The reason I'm running is because I want to be your voice. As a victim advocate, I was a voice, and a strong and loud voice. And I will be there for you, I will fight for you, and I will work to make sure that this Arizona is about you and not big money and not corporations and not what kind of gift you can get from a lobbyist. and I hope that you'll vote for me. My name is Terri Woodmansee.
Thank you. Go ahead. We thank you so much for participating in our debate, our forum this evening. And we thank all of you for taking the time to come out and prepare yourselves and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A link to the video of this debate will be posted there within about 72 hours, as well as links to other debates that have been scheduled. We also ask that you fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission. Thank you all for coming tonight.